he was for the young people. You know, he was for the unknown, the little guy,
Yeah.
You know, he was always trying to help that person there.
Welcome to episode 46 of the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. All right, welcome to episode 46 of the Bass Shed Podcast. On the episode is Joe Kreinar. This is the second part of a 2-episode tribute to bassist Bob Babbitt. Joe Kreinar is the son of Bob Babbitt. We're going to discuss a lot of things, actually. We're going to discuss one, the name change, right? We're going to talk about how Babbitt came into existence. The last name Babbitt came into existence. We're going to talk about recording sessions that Joe went to with his father. Insight about how the parents felt about him as a young musician and some of the expectations they had on him and his career. He'll talk about trends in bass playing that Bob did not get on board with that may have negatively impacted his career, and some other things. And some other things we'll talk about in just a second. D. Lakin Basses, founder of Lakeland Basses, Dan Lakin, has a new company, and I'm honored to be a part of the D. Lakin family. I co-designed a 5-string fretless with Dan and his design team. That bass is inspired by Ryan Roberts bass. The number is the 5-6035. I spoke with Dan last week. That bass is off to be routed and painted. Actually, I spoke with him last week about that. That's when he told me that. I spoke with him earlier today, actually. And I'm like, dude, what do you think about a matte finish, huh? Like, I'm kind of into the matte finish. Dan Lakin was not a fan of the matte finish. Yeah, what he had to say about it, I'm not going to repeat on the mic, but it was hilarious. So that bass is underway. Dan is also doing a bass giveaway, and the first prize is your custom bass. The first prize winner will connect with Dan and the design team, and they will build you the bass of your dreams. Stop by www.dlakenbasses.com to learn more about how to enter. Also, check out Dan's Amp Shop. 5 brands you can't get on Sweetwater or at Guitar Center: Demeter, Trickfish, DNA, Gensler, and Epiphany. Personally, I'm a fan of Epiphany. I play them. Love it. I did play Gensler on a gig a couple weeks ago in Seattle. I played their heads. Fantastic. That was the first time I played a Gensler head, and no issues. I had a good time with it, and I used it on upright and electric. So that's my time spent with Gensler. You can get those from Dan's Amp Shop. Go to www.dlakenbasses.com. All products have a 30-day guarantee, and Dan will pay for shipping both ways. If you are a double bassist, you will want to check out Lemur Music. Everything for the double bass. Head to lemurmusic.com. I've been a customer of Lemur Music since I started playing the upright, and I'm honored to have partnered with them. I'll be sharing more about that probably on the next episode. Later this week, I'm headed down to Lemur to meet with the folks there and exchange some information that I will be talking about on the next podcast. To let you guys know about the partnership I have with Lemur. But go to www.lemurmusic.com for all your double bass accessories, strings, sheet music, and more. lemurmusic.com. The Bass Shed website is dedicated to the artistry of bass legends and how we can broaden stylistic vocabulary by learning and analyzing the work of these legends. I also get emails regularly about folks wanting to study privately with me. So if you're not quite into doing the transcription thing, although I'm a big advocate for it, honestly, I transcribe a lot. That's kind of the nature of what's up on the website right now. is just the transcriptions and all the analysis of it. But if you want to learn some other things, some technical things, some theoretical things, some conceptual approaches to improvising, shoot me an email at ryan@thebassshed.com. I am offering a free trial lesson with every lesson sign up. If you're not feeling it after the trial, all good. Let me know and I will reimburse you for the lesson that you did sign up for. But hit me up at ryan@thebaseshed.com. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know what you'd like to be working on. Or you can visit thebaseshed.com/private-lessons. As I mentioned on the episode is Joe Kreinar, the son of Bob Babbitt. We're going to cover some things with Joe about Bob and about Joe's upbringing with Bob as a father. And again, I want to thank Joe and Chuck Kreinar for taking the time so that we could do this series of episodes and do a tribute to Bob Babbitt, who is one of my favorite bass players, and I really hope that the family is pleased with how these interviews came out. I personally think Bob was well represented, and I know I personally learned a lot more about him and got some insight to who he was as a human and as a person of strong character. But it was great for me. It was great for me, and I hope the family is pleased with them. So, again, thank you to Chuck and Joe for taking the time to do this. Chuck and I, Joe and I will discuss some things. Again, we're going to discuss about how the name Babbitt came into play. We're going to talk about how he dealt with the passing of his father, which if you had listened to the episode with Chuck Kreinar, that was really hard on Bob Babbitt. We're going to talk some about how Bob dealt with that. We're going to talk about the story of Bob Babbitt and his signature bass that he was kind of in the works with Fender that never saw the light of day. Bob Babbitt never ended up with the signature bass with Fender. And we're going to talk about, Joe's going to tell us about some of those things, about how that whole thing kind of went down. We're going to talk about Bob's move to Nashville, Bob's conduct in the studio, a lot of things about his professionalism, and ultimately, we're going to talk a lot about Bob's character. And yeah, with that said, here's my talk with Bob Babbitt's son, Joe Kreinar.
Let's actually start right there. Let's just start right there with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, right. I just wanted to touch on a little bit about my father, the type of person he was. He was a very faithful type of a friend, that type of a person, a very loyal type of a person. And he was devoted to his fellow musician more. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was his life pretty much. So he was, though, focused on the young guys, the new guys. He was always trying to help those guys get going.
Yeah.
He was really good that way.
Nice. Did it,
right.
What do you assume it to be that he was always looking out for the, not the underdog, but the person that may get looked over if no one spoke up on their behalf? Was there someone in his life that did that for him?
Yeah, I think it was his family there where he came from. He was the oldest of 4 kids.
That
was kind of built in him that
always
way.
Taking that big brother approach, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what he was more. He was like a big brother figure with other musicians. He was always like, I remember seeing him. I've read a lot of write-ups about him, other musicians saying that he was like a big brother figure.
Yeah.
So that was just in him. He had that, the oldest always has that built-in leadership, like that was just in him that way.
Leadership and supportive. When I think about my big brother, my big brother is very supportive in a big brotherly way. And I think you're right. I think all firstborns have that characteristic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, back though, when he was young there as a teenager, his dad put up sheetrock. He was a blue collar worker, and he worked with him at times in the summers as he was going through high school. And his father had a very strong work ethic, and he instilled that work ethic in him.
Sure.
So that just kind of went out, with him. He had a drive in him. It was very almost intense. He had such a drive in him, my father. He was always ready. He was ready to rock, man, every day. Right. So.
Yeah, I remember you telling me stories from last time we spoke, like, I'm blanking on the correct word, but the infamous, so to speak, of always showing up completely repaired prepared for these sessions. He had the pencil. He's making notes. He's making sure he's checking in with the producer to make sure that the parts, what the producer wants, and it wasn't his ego.
Correct. He was very disciplined, always very well prepared, always on time. It's like a model employee there. It was really good to work with. He didn't have any kind of attitude. He was very down to earth. He always stressed humility in his life. He always stressed humility. He was more character. He was more focused on character. He had a big heart. He had a big heart there, and he could look kind of intense there. Because he was very focused, and he would become intense. He would work, but when you got to know him, he was harmless. Like he was like a gentle giant. Like so it was good. He was really good there. So he was very charismatic type of person. He had a great personality there. He was a very inspiring guy, man. He would just light the room up there.
Love it. Yeah, and then, how old was he when you were born?
So I was born in 1962 in Detroit. He was 25, I think he was there.
Okay.
Right. 25, right.
Okay, so that's still that's really a young father. And then at 25, was he playing the major sessions, or is he kind of on the road with Steve?
He was just starting.
At this point?
He was with Del Shannon at that time. He was starting. That's when his studio career began right there.
Okay.
He played on Don and Juan, What's Your Name? It was called. It's like a classic doo-wop record that came out in 1962. That was the first record he played on.
Okay.
He an overdub, actually. He played the upright bass on that record.
Oh, okay.
So that was the beginning. That's when he started there. So he was in an instrumental band called the Royal Tones, and they became the backup band for Del Shannon there. So he was
with Dennis Coffey.
Correct. Yeah. That was going on from like 62 to 65 there. But in that time, that's when he started doing a lot of session work.
Okay.
There. Correct. Okay. But personally, I didn't experience or witness, I didn't see any of this till I was older.
Sure.
He took me to sessions in Detroit there at Pittsville there. I probably was like 9 or something, 8 or 9. I was at the recording of War, Edwin Starr, and it was classic, man. It was great recording, right? So that was a really first time. So I can't remember a lot. Just a few sessions he took me to. I was too little there. It wasn't until he left Detroit and he came to where I am now, New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York area. And I would go with him a lot. And then I didn't really understand what he did at first. He was a studio musician. I didn't really know what that meant. Like, what does that mean? Like,
yeah.
And I remember I'm thinking that I don't know what he was doing. He was playing in a polka band.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what he did exactly. So the first main session like that, I remember going to when I was of an age where I was really trying to understand. I was like about 12 years old at that time. It was the recording of the Rubber Band Man.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe, his playing on that thing. I sat there, and after that, I never questioned what he did, or I'm thinking to myself, is he a good musician? I mean, is he all right with what he does? Like, is he good?
Yeah.
I never. I mean, he was so on that, man. He was on fire there. I couldn't believe it there.
That's a great track, and it was actually, I didn't know this until you told me that the version that got released is the second take.
Correct.
But your dad was in love with the first take. Tell that story.
Fire. Yeah, it was on fire there, the first take, and then Tom Bell, the producer, he heard something there. He said, "We got to do it again," and I couldn't believe it. I didn't think he was going to be able to do it because it was like 8 minutes long, and you couldn't make a mistake in those days. And
if it was the same arrangement on the first take, that chorus at the end just keeps looping and looping and looping over and over again.
Right.
And you just have to be ridiculously consistent.
Yes. Yeah. So when it got up to like the 3-minute mark, I was holding on, thinking he's going to tire out. He's going to fall off here, but he didn't. He just kept, and it was awesome there. And that was the take there. I couldn't believe it. But after that, I just, as a him as a musician, man, I just respect, I just was blown away by him, and he was the kind of person where he never carried himself. He never spoke of himself. Very humble. And people from Pittsburgh are like that too. That's part of his background. He never said anything. He wasn't like I was going to say the word boasting. He never boasted anything like that. He wasn't like, he never would try to show anybody up like that. He wasn't like competitive that way. Only if somebody kept coming with him, then eventually he'd go back. He wouldn't carry him that. Yeah, he was really cool there.
And I remember you having stories about that I want to come back to with the story with Jamerson and being frustrated about the studio. But the humble nature, I want to stop and talk about this for a while. I mean, I think that's probably, I'm going to assume, very much connected with the blue collar family dynamic that he came up with, because the blue collar working class they're not showmen, necessarily by nature. I come from a blue collar family. My dad worked construction. And so I can understand and identify with a lot of that.
Right. More just you're building a sense of responsibility there as a person, as an adult, I was going to say.
Yes.
So that was instilled in him, and that's how he was. He worked hard. Anytime he was called, he would go, and it was good there. He was really good there.
At what age was he working with his dad, your grandpa? What age did he start doing that?
Probably 14, 15, 16, 17 years in there. Right, right. So, it's kind of sad, in his life, just looking back at his life. I was kind of reflecting here, thinking about this time here with you a little bit more than when we talked, last week, the other day there. So his dad wanted him to be a classical upright bass player.
Okay. So
at age 14, that's when he started taking lessons, classical lessons. He knew his parents, they were singers. They knew some of the players in the Pittsburgh Symphony. So they set him up with lessons from one of the bass players from the symphony there.
Okay.
So he was into it, man. He was on it there. So for 1 year, he studied with this guy, and he was doing really well. But then he discovered R&B music at age 15. And he was so into it. There. But he didn't want his parents to know. So we kind of hid that from them. He would go, when they would go to sleep at night, he'd go in the kitchen and he'd put the radio on and play along.
Right.
So, but he took to it, he's very disciplined. And one thing too, in those years there, maybe his brother, my Uncle Chuck, told you about this, that he would carry this bass, that upright bass, to school every day.
Yeah.
And in that area, there's a lot of hills in there. It's about a mile walk. I went back there in 2019. I checked out the area where he grew up there. And there's a lot of hills there, so you're walking about a mile and you're going up and down like these slopes, and he's carrying that bass on his back. So it really developed in him. He was a tough guy, later in life he was building this character in him, because later in life he had different health issues and he just kept travailing along, man. So it was like these things were kind of, his background, kind of almost, I guess, prepared him somewhat, for his adult life.
Yeah. I mean,
not that you want that to happen, things that happen, but when things came, adversity,
he would face it head on and just like, okay, we're dealing with this.
Correct.
And then, so those were his early influence of studying the R&B music in the kitchen and learning from the radio. What would he listen to around the house? Like when you guys are just at the house, what music was on in your house?
Myself growing up, because he listened to, his parents were Hungarian, and they sang Hungarian music.
Sure.
Listened to Hungarian music in the home there. Here, we listened to, he would bring home, so he became eventually an employee at Motown. He was he became like, all the musicians were like under contract with them, and he became, that way. And so he would bring records, albums, that stuff from there. So we would listen to, but it was more top 40, I would say. Top 40 stuff we listened to. Right. Sure. Well, one key thing here too, for young people, and if he was here, he would want me to say this, is, so when he was studying classical music, he learned how to read really well. right?
Yeah.
And when he got to Detroit, there was a whole list of bass players there trying to get into the session scene there. And he was like last one on the list on this sheet of paper. It was up on the wall. It was at Golden World Studios. That was the other, eventually became Motown Studio B. Barry Gordy bought that. But he was the only one on that list that knew how to read music. So he was the only one that got in. So he would always stress this in later years for young people to learn how to read music. It'll open up new opportunities for you, even though you might not like it. You know, as far as developing a career, building a career in this field, it'll help greatly. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always stress reading a lot to students and people, even when they're just starting out, because, and maybe your dad would identify with this and agree with this, that because it is a language, it's not only necessary to speak the language, but communicate the language in all forms, which is writing. You know, we speak English. You and I are speaking English right now. We can also read English.
Yes.
So I think it's just another way to know the language so that you can communicate ideas.
Yes. And I always remember when, he would take me with him. At this point, maybe I was 13, 14 years old. He would always, when they were running the tune down, he would be studying that chart, and he'd always be making notes and asking questions. He'd always have a pencil, making notes on that chart all the time, making sure he had his part right. Every time he'd be doing that. There's a couple of pictures I have with him, with a pencil in his hand, with the chart there. It's pretty amazing.
Oh man, I'd love to see him. The story I wanted to come back to when we were talking about that a second ago. Unless someone challenged him. I think you know the story I'm talking about, so I want to let you tell it.
Yeah. So when he started working at Motown there, this is like 1967. He was hired for a session, and Jameson came to the session and said to my father, "I'm on this session." And he had a gun. He had a gun with him. And he pulled the gun out, and my father said, "Okay, I guess you are like," and he started to leave. And the producer, the arranger producer said, No, you stay. You're on this session here, Babbitt. And Jameson threw everybody out of the studio and said, "Come on, Babbitt." And they had like a bass. They were going back and forth like a bass off kind of a thing. So, but after that, they became really good friends. They would hang out together and talk a lot. They did a lot of sessions together, 2 basses. Psychedelic Shack, Temptation, Psychedelic Shack. There's two basses on that, right? Jameson's playing the straight bass, and my father doubled an octave higher. He used one of those, it's called the Fender Blender for the bass. It has like a buzz type of a tone. Yeah, it's doubling the part, the main part. So they did a lot of sessions like that together. Right.
Oh, cool. Right. I was actually unaware of that. What are some other tracks that they were both on?
Well, I think it was more with Norman Whitfield's recordings there. He did all the Temptation stuff.
Okay.
Undisputed Truth. I can't remember. I mean, I don't know some of the other stuff there. Those were the main artists, though, that he did there.
Yeah.
There came a point where Jameson, whatever happened there on a personal level, he wasn't doing as much there, like 1970. And my dad started to do most of the stuff there for about 3 years there. But like I was sharing earlier, my father, he was so down to earth. He was not the kind of person. He was like, he would befriend you, he wasn't the kind of person that would just give you a hard time or something. The only time he was like that, if he was with someone that he was another musician that he had a friendship with, and somebody was giving his friend a hard time, then he would go over to that guy and try to stop that guy from doing it.
Right, that's the big brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he, I think about, one thing on a personal level I will share with him is, so his dad wanted him to be a classical upright bass player in the symphony, him to play in the symphony. So, I mean, he got really into it there. He was named, and I'm kind of like plugging, throwing something out. I don't want to make this sound like any kind of boastful way. He was named to the All-City Junior Symphony in Pittsburgh 3 years in a row there.
Okay.
And through his high school
not
year.
That's factual.
It was a strong thing. So sadly there, his dad passed away on his 17th birthday.
Yeah.
So we never got to see my father move into music as a career. I mean, maybe he might have wanted him to do classical music, but he just didn't see. And was pretty
kind of
heavy.
coming to his own, yeah.
Loss. And that kind of led eventually my father moving to Detroit, because then my dad was a senior in high school at that time. And there wasn't a lot of jobs in Pittsburgh. And he had an uncle and his grandparents that were all in Detroit. And they told him to come there. There was a lot of jobs there. And he went there, and he was there for a year. And I think he was about 18 at that time. And he worked like a construction job for a year. And he met some guys in the neighborhood where he was living that had a band. And he went back to Pittsburgh, got his upright bass, and came back and started playing in that band.
And was that the Royal Tones?
That was the Counts. And there's a picture of that band in the movie, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. There's a picture of that group there, the guys there. Yeah. Right. And it was one of those guys, too, more history. One of the guys in that group, his brother started calling him. They started calling him, it was Bob, Babbo, Babs, Babbo, Babbitt. And then Babbitt was like a nickname, and that kind of stuck there. And everyone just called him Babbitt all the time as a nickname. And then he just went by that, Bob Babbitt. Yeah. Born Robert Kreinar in 1937 in Pittsburgh. So that's what he was, that was what he was known by, right?
And I remember talking to Chuck, if it was weird for Chuck to hear, his brother being called by a different last name, was it weird for you to hear your father being called by a different last name than the family? Were you around it that much, or did that only happen on the gig?
Yeah. See, right. I was a little young there. I was too young. But later in my teen years, I started to, I guess, get used to it, if you want to say. Yeah.
Okay. Just kind of understood, like that's what the musician guys call dads.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Just kind of understanding, right? I just want to say, his personality, if I can really convey here, bring it across here, he was a real charismatic guy, just light the room up there. He had an energy. He was always, you would ask me, was that generational? And yes, his dad had this drive too there. He instilled that work ethic and that drive in him, man. He was like a life of the party kind of guy. His father was, and he was like that, so the modeling there was pretty strong. Right. Yeah. I mean,
I think that it's that, that kind of immigrant, I would assume, mentality. Like, okay, we're here. We got to make it happen. Let's go, carve out this little piece of America for ourselves and just, work hard.
Right.
And look out for, the other people that in your whatever communities to also come up too. And, I think a lot of those things, it seems like they would convey to your dad's personality and what he brought to the music. And, you can hear that drive and that precision in his playing. And the thing with your dad's playing, it's just so consistent. Yeah. All the nuance is consistent. Everything is so consistent in your father's playing. It's pretty unbelievable.
Yes. Right. His touch. He always emphasized a very light touch. Like you can hear like on Mercy, Mercy Me, Marvin Gaye playing that record. Very relaxed. And so there was just as he was intense, he was very focused when he would work, very intense. There was a very peaceful side to him. You can hear it on that record, Touch Me in the Morning, Diana Ross, you can hear it there. Midnight Train to Georgia is very relaxed.
Sure.
Bass. When they recorded that record, they mixed it. Ed Stasium mixed it, the engineer. They thought the bass needed to be louder in that record. The bass is like so loud in that thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like it.
Right. So, but that's a key. Something else too, with his playing there was his touch there. He would touch very, very gently, like, on a lot of records there.
Yeah, but it was still at the same time, like you can hear that and his overall feel, and it's specifically on Rubber Band Man. Like everything's just so relaxed, but it does that tune, Rubber Band Man, almost more so than Midnight Train to Georgia or Mercy, Mercy Me. It has this kind of really guttural fire in it too.
Yes.
He's on the backside of the beat, but like he's relentless with where he's putting that.
Yes. Good observation there. Right, exactly. Right. Him and the drummer there, Andrew Smith, that's in Detroit. That was the type of, how can I say there, that more laid back, like his backbeats are just hanging back there.
Yeah.
So you're going in that pocket, but you're driving at the same time there. Right, laying back in there.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean that tune. After we talked about it, whenever we spoke last a week ago or something, I went back and I had heard the tune, but I hadn't really spent some time with it, and so I was transcribing it, and I was blown away by it. Like, man, how did I not recognize this feel? This feel is insane. And to the point of it made me understand some contemporary guys in a new way too. Like I listened to Pino Palladino a lot.
Yes,
and I always kind of equate Pino to being, just coming straight from the Jamerson school. But on some of these tracks I've transcribed to Pino's, I mean, that's almost like right off of Rubber Band.
The movie, Pino came and he recorded the introduction. There's a little bass, just a bass only in the introduction of the movie. That's him. That's Pino playing that there.
Oh, okay.
Right. He's a monster. That guy too. There.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So my dad, you were asking about different things, personally growing up with him or just in general, he never, I saw him up close. He was very humble. Like I said, he never spoke of himself, but I always saw him. He never felt valued. It was really sad there, because he was always in the shadow of Jamerson in Detroit. So on the Marvin Gaye album, What's Going On, that was the first album that they gave the musicians credits there. Marvin Gaye. That.
And this is by the time at this point they're on contract, right? They're not just.
Yeah. This is 71. So they recorded 5 tracks on that album with Jamerson. What's Going On was one of them. It was June of 1970. And Berry Gordy didn't like the lyrics. He didn't like the theme on the album.
Right. So he didn't like that it was kind of an activist thing. He wanted to keep it more commercial. Yeah.
Correct. And then the A&R guy, the main A&R guy, Harry Bulk was his name. He went and put out What's Going On without Berry Gordy knowing. He just went and did it on his own, and it started to sell, broke out, sold a lot of copies. So they needed to now put together a full album. So they recorded 4 new tunes. This was now March of 71. So 9 months went by there. And my dad did those 4 tunes. It was Mercy, Mercy Me, Inner City Blues, Right On, Holy, Holy, those 4 there. Yeah. So that was the beginning, but he never, it was sad there. He never felt valued, like he just never, no one ever, I don't know. It was terrible. His whole
life. How did this change his, because rewinding in our conversation right here, he wasn't jealous of Jamerson. Him and Jamerson became friends, but now we're in 1961, summer of 70 and 71.
Yeah, 71, right.
And now your dad's understanding that what's the deal? Your dad's getting a little frustrated by it. What happened in those years? Was it just too much of being looked over, or thinking that stuff he had played on, everybody just assumed it was Jamerson because it was Motown?
Yeah, correct. I mean, it opened things up a little bit more for all the musicians there when they started putting credits on the albums. But, I guess when he left there, it helped him as far as continuing his career, going into a new area. But he just never, he just never really felt but a lot of that too was how, where he came from. No one knew anything that he did, because he never said anything to anybody.
Right.
He never told anybody what he did. So,
right. Yeah. It was a little bit of a double-edged sword there, but I mean, ultimately it's better to stay humble and have integrity, I think.
Yeah.
It seems like your dad agreed.
Yeah.
But that does backfire. That's the adage, nice guys finish last. That's kind of some of that. So there's I wouldn't call it a downside, but there's a fallout to it. There's consequences, I guess, for those decisions.
Right. I remember when he moved to Nashville in the 80s, 86 it was, he had to put together they termed it as a reel, copy of little piece. He did a little resume, and he never did that. He felt uncomfortable doing that, I remember. because he didn't like to talk about himself. Like he just wasn't. Yeah, he just wasn't that way. Like but you have to a little bit in trying to generate work for yourself with something. I remember one time he came home and I said, who did you work with today? I asked him. He said, I did a session for Diana Ross. Richard Perry was the producer. He never would say. You have to ask him. You have to really get it out of him. Right.
Having a father who's playing with all these, he got his big break with Stevie and touring with Stevie, and Stevie brought him into Motown as a session guy. And having that upbringing for yourself, did you get into music? And if so, at what age? And how did you pull from some of those resources that your father had?
Yeah. I mean, so I started playing the drums in my teen years. Okay. I was into it there. I was so into it. And he got me on some sessions with him after I got out of high school. I was really getting into it there. And that's when drum machines came out and knocked out. That was like in the early 80s. It knocked out the live drummer there. So I started I started focusing on the piano, like more like songwriting. I got into songwriting more and sing. Okay. So I kind of went a different direction. I wanted to follow in his footsteps. I wanted to do what he did there. I wanted to be a drummer, but everything changed. And even in that time there, everything changed for him. That's when everything went to synthesizers at that time. And
so what year we're talking early 80s, like what? 82, 80, 83 in there?
Right. And at that time too, with the bass in the New York area, everything transitioned to playing with your thumb and popping it. The strings. And he wasn't into that, man. He didn't think that the bass was to be played that way. And he never really got into it. And it really it negatively affected his workflow there because everything went to that. Everybody wanted that. Sure. And Jamerson was the same way. He didn't play that way. He didn't think it was right for the bass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think both of those guys being upright players first.
Correct.
That's I don't know too much about. I know Jamerson played jazz and he was an upright guy first. I don't know much about his classical training. But your dad having a classical training and its technique is very standardized. The technique is going to be something like you play it like this, so that you can focus on other elements of musicality and phrasing and stuff. And it seems like your dad brought that into the electric instrument of like the electric bass is played like this and almost has a classical approach to the instrument.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, because years later in his life, he pulled out that upright bass again, started playing that thing again. He's like in his 60s at that time, right? He got back into it there. Right. But he was more, my dad, he was very musical. He was very melodic there. His parts, you can hear Robert
I know.
Every kind insane. Of people. Yeah. So he played the piano and he would work on writing music on the piano a lot at home. That's what I remember with him. He was always playing the piano at home and he wrote really nice music. He never really pursued that a whole lot. He was always focused on his instrument, but he had the gift of music in him. And when he played his instrument, all his parts were very melodic. He worked for this guy in Philadelphia, Tom Bell, the Rubber Band Man guy, and they did a lot of projects over like a 10-year period, and a lot of that stuff. Denise Williams, Elton John, they did a little EP on him. Phyllis Hyman, there were a ton. All the Spinners, like 5 albums on the Spinners, all that stuff. You can hear his parts are very melodic there.
Yeah,
it's just
No, that's one of my favorite attributes of your dad's playing. It's this melodic phrase, and Jamerson had it too, but it's a bass line that's so powerful with a big sound and a big drive, and it has fire, but it's also, and your dad more so than Jamerson, was just really relaxed and lyrical. Jamerson didn't have the same relaxed feel. His thing had a little bit more fire all the time. Yeah. Even when he was playing melodically, it had more fire. And it wasn't quite the same it wasn't relaxed to the same degree.
Correct. Yes. Oh, that's good. I just remember growing up. It's not something, as far as sharing this, it's healthy. He just, that day, every year on his birthday, he dreaded that day. He couldn't wait for that day to end it was a terrible day for him because of that. What happened, his dad passing away on that day. So I never saw him enjoy his birthday into my 20s. He never that day, couldn't wait for that day to end. That was really sad there. So it was terrible.
It speaks more to like just his heart, though, to be still having such a big heart towards his own dad that, is still grieving his father and the impact and the weight of that loss. So it's not. I'm not at all trying to frame your dad as like being this, curmudgeon-y, bitter guy. I think it speaks more to like he still felt for his dad so much. And I mean, even when I was talking with Chuck and still seeing Chuck tear up when he's talking about the bass solo on Scorpio. That whole family had just these big-hearted people it's all just warm and they just want to hug everybody all the time. Yes.
And their sister, she was really good there. She passed away in 2000. And when she passed away, man, my father took that really hard there. Oh man.
And then what order was she? So it was your father, then Chuck.
Then her, and then the youngest brother, Ed, was the youngest one, who's another. Okay. Right. So he had a big heart, my dad, just had a heart, that man. And sometimes he didn't verbally express, he would more do things, like he would do things for you there. That was more his way of expressing. He would try, verbally, he didn't really fully maybe say, but you could see, though, you could always see there he would try.
Yeah. And I think those things are generational, about, being really open and emotionally aware and feeling comfortable to share all that stuff. I think that's maybe some progress society and culture has made relatively recently. But coming from the generation your father came from, what year was your dad born again?
37.
37. Okay, so your dad was 12 years older than my dad.
Right, correct. So he just had his personality there. He was just like he was like a person of influence. You have to see, he just was very, charismatic. He was kind of person when he walk in the room, everybody would gravitate to him, like. Oh yeah. Automatically, right.
Now, getting all this attention, like that scenario, he walks into a room, everybody would gravitate to him, but he's a humble guy and doesn't want to talk about himself or, really, he's not seeking the attention. How would he respond to that?
He would give back. He would give to them. He was like there for them, like to them, pouring into people, like, Sure. He was good. I was sharing the story with you when we talked before on the phone, where Fender wanted to make a signature bass for him.
I remember
this was I think this was like 2010. I think this was in there, and they asked him when Jameson was inducted into the Fender Hall of Fame. I think it was 2009. There, they asked him to induct him, like to give the speech, like. So he went there. That was 2009, and that's on YouTube. There, it's pretty good there too.
Oh, cool! I'm gonna have to check that out.
Then after that, they wanted to make a signature bass for him. He went to the factory. I think it was in Mexico. They got everything together, the specs, whatever, the design, and they wanted to charge a lot of money for that thing, like $3,000 to $4,000.
Yeah,
and he said, What if somebody like a teenager, a college student wants to buy this? How are they going to afford this here? Let's charge like $1,500 or something. Right. 100 and 2,000, and they wouldn't do it there. They wouldn't do it, and the whole thing fell apart eventually. Man, that happened. Yeah. So that's how he was, like that.
And then I love your dad's perspective on it, that he's looking out for other people. Again, that big brother nature.
What
was his reaction when Fender said no?
He was pissed.
Of course. And did this snowball? Did this continue the snowball idea of being overlooked? Because you and I spoke about who the bass went to and who they released, and we don't need to say names here, but you told me who ended up releasing a bass with them kind of instead.
Yes.
And then that's just kind of another notch on the post of being overlooked. And it's,
Yeah, kind of like that, right. I mean, I think with me, it got to, for years, I saw that. I almost couldn't take it anymore. You want to give him like a big hug there.
Right.
Oh, and it just, it wasn't, well, that was a key thing. I think at the end, though, when that movie came out, he started getting so many calls for different projects. Phil Collins contacted him, Rod Stewart contacted him.
Sure.
Peter Frampton, Annie Lennox contacted him at the end of his life there. She wanted him to do her next album at that time. That was 2011. And that's when he was diagnosed with cancer, and it never happened. So, but there were a lot of artists reaching out to him. He all of a sudden now he's being almost recognized, like,
sure.
Like 50 years, nobody knows who the guy is.
But it's great that he got that while he was with us. I think. Right. And it wasn't after the fact, where he wasn't around to experience it. I'm glad he got to experience. And even that recording with Phil Collins, they did a lot of the old Motown tunes. So he got to revisit his own kind of career there at the end and get this new dose of recognition. Correct.
Not again. Not that, he was looking for that in a product.
No, sure.
I don't make it sound like that. But one thing too, on this day, March 23rd, 2011, he was on that show American Idol. Right?
Oh, wow. Really?
Had him up there. It was 9 years ago today. And that was
crazy.
the last time he played.
Oh man.
Performed live, like, right.
I didn't even know that. When we set this up, I didn't know that. Did you know that? I mean, obviously you knew that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I'm so happy it worked out today then. This is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. And at the end of that performance, so he kind of accompanied like two singers there, two of the contestants, and Randy Jackson at the end of the one contestant. He introduced him, and then he brought a really strong word about my father, and the place was applauding.
Oh,
and
that's fantastic.
when it was done, he went back into the dressing room, like no one was there, like tears were coming down. He told me this. Oh man, it was really powerful there. It was really good there. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And he knew your dad had already kind of come to terms with that was going to be the last performance, right?
Well, no, he didn't know that a month later he was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, it was a month later. Okay. So that just happened to be the last performance.
Correct.
I see.
A lot that came into his life there. The love that was flowing there was really strong there.
Good.
Right.
Good.
So yeah, it was a great thing there.
Good. And it sounds like he was really just embracing it and didn't have this mentality of it's about time, because there's that perspective that people could take. Well, like, it's about time I get recognized for all this stuff I've been doing for 50 years. But it sounds like he just received it kind of open-handedly, and again with a big heart and just was thankful for it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And now going back to Phil Collins, talk about your father's bass and Phil Collins.
Yeah. So Phil wanted to make those recordings as close to the original recordings as he could, the sound.
Yeah.
So he wanted my dad to play that bass that he used back in Detroit. And he still had that bass, and he used it. He used that bass on the recordings. And after my father passed away, eventually he bought that bass.
Built it.
Yeah.
It's the Alamo, or is it World War I that Phil is a big artifacts guy?
Yeah, the Alamo, right.
Alamo, yeah. And so I love that he extended that into music history as well.
Yeah, he was great. He really took good care of my father. Man, he took such good care of him there. Right. It was good. Just in every regard there, he took care of him really good there.
For as much as you've looked back into your father's career, do you think some of these accolades, I guess, and kind of praise, recognition that he got later in his career is because of the simple things of him getting record credit? Because the record industry back in the 60s was so kind of happenstance, Yeah. Like they're just recording everybody hoping to get a single. And the music industry was definitely not what it was by the time he's working with Phil Collins.
Right. Yeah, I would say the answer to that is yes. Definitely attributed. Definitely, all the guys. It definitely helped there for him to receive, an experience. Yeah, because at the end there, they were, he was receiving all kinds of things that were coming. He had all kinds of awards and man, just tons of stuff was coming there.
That's awesome. Where are those now? Do you have those? Does the family have those? Are those in museums or where are those? No,
our mother has all that.
Right? Okay. Right, where's she at?
She's in Florida. She's in Florida.
Okay.
So yeah, Phil has the main bass. The guy at the Musicians Hall of Fame, Joe Chambers, he would like to bring that bass over to where he is, but I don't think that's going to happen unless Phil passes away or whenever down the road, then
sure,
work something out like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of Phil having it personally as a bass player because I like it being in the possession of another musician, and it's not institutionalized. It's like it's hanging in someone's house who worked with him. Like there's a connection there to the instrument and the people that means. I think it has a lot of value.
Yes, I think the relationship that my father had with him, it really was strong there. Phil really took to him, it seemed like more than the other guys, because he had that personality. He was a big guy. He was a big guy in his appearance, man. He's about 6'2". He looked like an offensive lineman, like a defensive
right.
big guy, man. So it would just that would kind of draw you to him a little bit. His size there,
sure, just the way his presence,
right. He was real cool there. You wanted to be around him. You wanted to be, there was like an excitement. He'd come in the room. There was like an excitement that would come. He was on fire. I remember he had a good relationship with Robert Palmer, singer from England, and I saw them two together in a room. They looked like brothers. They were like brothers together, and very high energy. Very powerful men there, man. Very strong. Jeez. Right, both together. So he just was that way. He had a good relationship with artists, I remember. And he was just he was just a really good guy, cool guy there to be with and to be around. He wasn't perfect. He had rough edges, but
I mean, you can't. Yeah, everybody does, whether they're in the music industry or not. And I can't imagine dealing with it during that time period.
Right.
I know. And then the corruption just changes the more technology progresses. That's really just all it is.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things started happening in his life that I remember too, and it's, I feel it's all right to talk about these things, is that just as he was like a very faithful friend type of person, he was always there for others. Man, he was good like that. When he would go through something or he went through something, it wasn't like that with him. Others weren't there for him. And that was another sad, heartbreaking thing. So,
it's funny to me, that is a shame. Before I speak anything, that is an absolute shame that kind of support and peer mentality, if that's the right phrase or whatever, it wasn't reciprocated to him. But the connection between your dad's personality and his playing is such a direct connection. And the more I've spoke with you and Chuck about who he was not behind the bass, and then going back and checking out these records, you can hear and feel all of that. And it is a direct connection from him to the instrument.
Yes. Right. He was just really down to earth. And there was no pretense, again, I'll say with him. So going back to his playing there, where everything changed to where the style of play, everyone was playing with their thumb and popping it.
Yeah.
He wasn't into that. So he contacted Larry London, drummer in Nashville. He had a friendship with him for years and told him all this, how it changed, and he's not working like he was, because he wasn't into that. And he told Larry told my father, he said, come here to Nashville. They don't play like that here.
Right.
All kinds of work here. And he went. he went. And it was a different feel, different world. It was all country at that time, all country music. And it was tough. It was tough for him there. A lot of guys go there that have, good track records. And they can't quite get anything going there, break in there. Many guys, it's terrible. So he went through that for years where, there's a lot of demo work there, like songwriter demos.
Yeah.
Right. That's decent. You make $50 a tune, you do 3 tunes, you do like 2 or 3 of those a week and it pays your bill. You get all your expenses are covered. So he was doing that for a while. I don't know how long there, somebody couldn't get in there in the main session.
What kind of effect did that have on his kind of psyche? He went from playing on hits, now he's playing on demos. Like,
yeah, well,
I would think, what the hell?
Yeah, it was a test, man. He was being tested. His temperament, his nature, his character. Because what would happen there when he started putting together resumes and presenting, trying to now present himself for the first time, really, all these producers, there was 12 guys. They were the 12, they're very active, working a lot. These guys, they all said, man, we want to hire you here. We can't believe that you're here. Not one of those guys hired him. No one ever hired him. Yeah, he got to the point where he couldn't take it, man. They kept, every time somebody would tell him this, he just got like, yeah, okay. But no one ever would hire him,
Right. Yeah. I kind of understand your dad's perspective of not like, okay, well, I'll believe you when the check clears. Like, then you hired me. Other than that, like, nothing's solid. The gig's not solid. Being paid for the gig isn't solid. As soon as the check cleared, that's when you hired me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right. I wanted to touch on one thing we were talking about earlier.
Sure thing.
Going back to Detroit there when he was, doing session work at Motown there. The musicians were under contract. When that Scorpio record came out, Dennis Coffey, there's a bass solo in that record. They came to him, the record company said, we want you to do, based off that record, we want you to do an album, an instrumental album as an artist.
Sure.
So he was like, okay, great. He was so into it. So he did that. And they never released it. And they would
But it's recorded.
It's recorded, yes, but they wouldn't put it out. And they did that with many artists there. They would let the guys record, the musicians, but they would never release anything.
Just let them give them the feeling of, some individuality, but then never really.
Right. Yeah. What they thought was behind that was that way. They were afraid it was going to break up. They were going to leave those guys. They were going to go because they were starting. Now that's when that Marvin Gaye album came out, when the credits were there. They were thinking that they were going to lose those guys. So they tried to keep them there by doing this. But then Jeff Beck came there.
I like this story.
Yeah, he came to record there. He came with his drummer there, Cozy Powell, and this producer, Mickey Most from England there. So they were recording with Jameson first, and it didn't work out. Something wasn't happening with him. And so they brought my father in, and my dad got along with them, with Jeff Beck, really, really well, really good there. So they recorded 3 tracks. One of them in particular was really, really good there. But he liked my father to the point where he wanted to make him a part of his band there, which would require him to move to England. He wanted to move him to England, and he wanted to go. My father wanted to go. Yeah. But the company, Motown, would not let him out of the contract he was under.
Out of the contract.
Right.
How long was the contract? Do you know how long the time
I'm not sure how they
was?
did it. Yeah, I'm not sure what it was. But when they officially moved, it was like late 72, early 73. They went to California. He didn't go. He didn't go out there. Because he was thinking, he had a kind of a bad taste there because first they wanted him to do this instrumental album. They didn't release it. And then this opportunity came for him to go with Jeff Beck, and they wouldn't allow him to get out. They wouldn't let him out of the contract. He said, I'm not going to stay with this company now anymore. So he left. He came to this area in New York. Yeah. New Jersey, Philadelphia. Right.
So, that's where he cut Midnight Train.
Yes.
Yeah.
It actually was recorded about not too far from where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
It's about 5 miles away. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Right. So how that came about was there was an arranger here in New Jersey that would come there, and he would do string arrangements for Holland Dozier, Tony Camillo.
Yeah.
And my dad got to know him, and he told my father, come over here to New Jersey. I'm going to get something going here, and there'll be a lot of work here. So there were a couple other guys too. Aretha Martin was coming there and telling him to come to the New York area. So then Tom Bell was coming there doing stuff, and the same thing. He got to know him, and then he made the move to here.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But that's just like another kind of along the way, another little thing of the not recognized thing. You know, he did this thing, he did the record, didn't get the recognition for the record, then kind of didn't get the opportunity to be recognized by Jeff Beck and do that career shift. And yeah, man, I can understand the frustration of just years and years and years of always this thing, and always being like, oh, that was you, not James, playing bass, and you know, and then like being anchored by the powers that be at Motown.
Right.
That's gotta take a toll on anybody.
Yeah. Yes. But he had a very positive outlook there, you know, throughout his life. You know, he had a good spirit there, and he just travailed. He kept on going there, and, you know, it was great. You know, I mean, his career was really good there. I look back now and everything that he did there, I'm blown away by it. I listen to some of his records now. I can't believe, you know, these records that I used to listen to, but now many, many years later, I listen back there. You know, Touch Me in the Morning really is one that stands out like that, man.
When I talk on the podcast to bass players, and when I've talked to you and Chuck about the music, I'm always curious about the music that was going on during someone's childhood, because I feel like that music is going to play out the rest of their life in some capacity. And one of the reasons this is so special to me to talk to you and Chuck is because your dad was the one playing bass on the music in my house. Like, my mom used to listen to the oldies station all the time. That was always on in the car. So I was always listening to your dad playing with Marvin, your dad playing with the Temptations, your dad playing with Gladys Knight. All those radio hits that are still getting airplay. I grew up listening to that. And so to connect, you know, me as a bass player now to the family of this guy, like, I was listening to, and I didn't even know who the Temptations were. I just knew that's the music mom listens to. And then the older I got, and I started researching the records and learning the bass lines and all this stuff. Cool. But that music and the music your dad was a part of is very personally special to me. And I'm sure it is for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I mean, I have some personal stories about some tracks your dad played on, and how they were the soundtrack to different elements in my life, you know? Right. So every time I hear that track now with your dad on it, that means a lot to me. And, you know, your dad was a part of that. And your dad touched me long before I even knew who your dad was. And I think he did that for so many.
That's good. That's a good story. Right.
You know, and I think that's cool. And I think it's great that, you know, listen, I'm assuming mostly bass players will listen to this, but, you know, that we get to understand more of who he was. When you really dig into the music, you can hear who he was. But some of these other stories that you shared, that's really cool, because it makes sense. You know, it's like, well, he could have been just a great musician, you know, and so many of them are. But to hear that he was like that off stage too, and when he wasn't at the studio, that he was still traveled with the same integrity and humility and work ethic. That's
always humility, right? I remember one thing in particular. I remembered, I had a memory today. Is I was probably, I don't know, maybe at this point I was like late teens, and he was there's some marital difficulties there with him and our mom. And he said to me, he was going to a session. I was going with him. Mm-hmm. And in the car, he said, when you later in life, if you get married, this is like a fatherly type of, if you want to say advice type of thing he said to me.
Yeah.
He said, if things aren't going well with your spouse, when you go to work, maintain your focus, stay focused. Don't let that throw you off.
Man, that's huge, man. That's huge because that, and I'm sure you can, I'm not sure if you're married or not. Are you married?
No.
Okay. Any relationship, whether it was when I was married or dating, like if there's trouble in that aspect of life, it is hard. It's very difficult to not let that permeate every other area. So you can't focus. You're raw. Yes. You feel rejected. You feel frustrated. You feel unheard. You feel blah 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 because of whatever's happening in your personal life. And it is your dad. I mean, that's amazing advice because that's real. That's real.
Yes. One other thing he told me too, right in line with that, was he said, if you, in your own life, in terms of a music career, if you get into it and you start doing well, financially, he said there could be maybe a lot of women coming around you, and just watch your money.
Yeah.
What he said, careful, watch your money. That's what he said. I said, oh my.
That's all. That's legit. Whether you're successful in music or not, watch your money.
Right. So, but he, right in line with that, I saw him that way when he would go on a session and things weren't good at home or something. Man, he was focused. He didn't let it, throw him off there.
He kind of just reprocessed and repurposed some of that emotion and put it in the music in a professional way, not in the showing up late or being angry to the other guys or whatever.
Yeah. Just remember, always at the end of a session, when everybody would pack up, he would always say goodbye to the producer or arranger, and he'd wait. Let's say they were working on, something with the track or something. He wouldn't just go in and say goodbye. Like, he'd wait till there was an opening to a moment where they stopped. He'd stand to the side there, the reverence there, and then he'd wait and he'd say goodbye. Like, man, the respect. It was awesome there.
Yeah,
it's awesome how he was
being very intentional.
Yeah, it was great there.
That's awesome.
Those are the things. The two things I remember is how those personal things about how you could see in terms of like personal kind of heartbreak. Pain.
Sure.
You want to say hurt there, and then how he was though, how he related on the job there. He was like a model employee there. And always on time. He was always on time. He always stressed and made sure. And, again, he was always very prepared, very disciplined. He had a good work ethic. He was really good to work with. It was like a producer's dream, man. If he didn't have any attitude, he would do whatever they wanted, because a lot of guys don't do that. They're going to play what they want to play. They're not going to play what the arranger or producer wants out. Yeah, he wouldn't do that. Again, his philosophy was, they're paying me here, so I'm gonna do whatever they want here. They're paying me here, and he wasn't that way anyways. Just to go and I'm just gonna do what I want here and take over type of thing. No, he wouldn't do that there. No. So,
I mean, he didn't have that kind of freedom when he's hanging sheetrock. They're paying him to hang sheetrock.
That was the thing.
Now he gets to the studio and he just needs to hang sheetrock. And he still had a personal musical identity there, but he's hanging sheetrock.
Right. So he always stressed there with me to respect the office of authority. Maybe that person's not cool there. That authority figures, maybe there's some rough edges with that person, but you're respecting the office, not the person per se. Right.
Yeah, I like that. Respect the office.
That's how he was on the job there, like that. So that person that's paying him is like, his, whatever how you want to term it, authority or employer. So he would, was good there. It was healthy.
Yeah.
So you don't see that, a whole lot of that in this day. The times change.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah. The times change. I think times change, but good character in people defies the passage of time and the change in cultures and this and that, like respectful integrity on time, and ultimately those are all attributes of respect that your dad was paying to the music, paying to the people he was making music with. And, that equates to people he's working for because it was his profession, but it's a respect to the music and it's a respect to the people he's making the music with.
Yes. I believe his father instilled that in him there.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely the generational. It's hard this day and age. They say 50% of young people grow up without a father. So, the role of a mentor, finding someone is a key thing for anybody, any age, especially though when you're younger and you want to establish yourself or build a career, to find someone that's going to affirm you and speak life into you, and really help you to reach your goals, like to devise a plan, is a key thing. To seek someone out like that. That's what he would say. He was alive now. That's what he would say to the young people.
Sure. Who were those people for him? I mean, unfortunately, his father passed when he was young. Who were some of those mentor figures for him when moving to Detroit and then maybe even moving to New York?
I think that guy here, the guy that did Midnight Train to Georgia, he was older, Tony Camillo. He was like that with him, I remember. He was that kind of person. He had a good head on his shoulders and he was a good life person. Like he could really help you navigate through life, that guy. And he was like that with everybody, that guy, Tony. He just passed away like about a year and a half ago. He was 91 years old or 90 years old. Like, I went to, it was amazing.
Are you personally in touch with the children of some of these people you worked with, like the Dozier children, or I have a good friendship with Lamont Jr. there, Lamont Dozier, right? Cool. Yeah, Eddie Willis's daughter. Yeah, I'm in contact with her. There's different people. I was talking with Jameson's son there, and he passed away, James Jr. Oh, wow. When was that? I didn't know about that. Yeah, he passed away like 5 years ago now. Today it was 5 years. Oh my gosh. Wow. This is like a big day in bass history. Jeez. I didn't even know. Go figure. Yeah. Did James Jr. play? He did. He had a really good career. He was a very good bass player. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he had different health issues there. The wife, Annie, she's great. I talk with her. Annie. She's still around, huh? Yeah, she's in Detroit. Yeah. Okay. I have good memories of my father. He instilled a lot of good things in me. And, sometimes I have these memories of him, the things that I remember him, the hurt there, how he never felt valued. If he was alive now, I when his birthday would come, I'd throw a big, huge birthday party for him, because he never enjoyed his birthday. I was telling you about that. Yeah. Things like that, but. What, remind me when his birthday was. I remember I knew it. November, November 26th. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we did a lot of things musically together way back. It was great. All the time we was working on a lot of tunes together, writing tunes together and playing, instruments. Yeah, it was great. That's cool. Yeah, that would have been cool to do more of that in later years. Sure. You have the recording that he did with Jeff Beck, right? Yes, I do. And they were trying to get that out somehow. Ken Scott, the engineer, he was going to mix that stuff. There's an article online about this. This was in, I think, 2010, so it's been a while. Okay. And something happened there. I'm not sure what happened. They tried to do it, but I think what they said was the condition of the tape, because it's like 50 years now. It's 50 years old, that tape. Crazy. It's not. They have to bake it or something. I'm not sure what the deal is. Yeah. Well, there's one track on there that's really, really, really good. Very good there. Sorry about this ring here. Yeah. So, maybe, I don't know what the plan is with that. Maybe one day they're gonna pull that out and try to, get it to where they can release it. Some good stuff there. There was some good stuff on there. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Man, in closing, I had read online somewhere that there was a claim, and maybe we discussed this. That Bob played on "I Got a Name" by Jim Croce.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember checking it out and listening to it. I'm like, nope, not at all. Like, it's a fantastic bass line, but like, no way. That's definitely not Bob.
Yeah,
And then you start looking things up, and like, I kind of got to the bottom of who it was, but you can just tell by listening, like, no, that's not Bob. It's not Bob at all. Yeah. If anything, I would probably think it sounds more like Tommy Cogbill than Bob. Mm-hmm. But like, no, because like your dad's thing was so strong. It's just like, it's always going to be this. It's always going to be relaxed. It's always going to be melodic. It's always going to have these.
It's not quite his touch there, right? There were two versions of that tune recorded. He did one of the versions, but I think the same thing you're saying is that's not him there. That's not his touch. He didn't. No. The part is something he would play, but that's not how he would have played it like that.
Yeah, the part is
more relaxed. His touch would have been different. The sound,
and I think would have probably played less.
Right, because the guy's really running through there, right? Really moving.
It's fun to listen to, and I think it works cool for the song. And I'm a big Jim Croce fan, so it's like cool. Yeah, Jim Croce and a lot of bass, cool. But it's not Bob. You know, like that's.
Yeah, I heard the other version. And it's like it was a theme for a movie, the second version, and that sounded like him. That sounded like my father. It was different, different arrangement, similar a little bit with that acoustic guitar. But the track though underneath was different. The drums and the bass. It was a little different than the single, the known recording. Like, so I tend to lean toward what you're saying here. Yeah, because that's not his. Yeah, he didn't. He played differently.
Yeah, it's like those are the words, but that's not the voice. That's how I think about it. Like, yeah, those are things he might say, but that's not him. That's not the voice. It's not the same person saying it.
I mean, so as far as ones that stand out, I'm just trying to almost like drawing a blank here, is like, those same ones like Touch Me in the Morning, Rubber Band Man, those ones, Norman Whitfield in Detroit, did all the Temptations records. Confusion stood out. That was a good one. Smiling Faces, Undisputed Truth. That was a good one. There was a record he played on there by the group was called Shades of Blue. Oh, How Happy. Oh, How Happy. That was like 67, I think that was. That was a good one there.
Oh, wow. That was early on in his career.
Yeah, earlier. Cool Jerk, the Capitals. That's like a classic, that one there. Cool Jerk. So that was a little earlier there. Just thinking about later ones, different records there. Man, War, Edwin Starr, War is a good one. That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Mama Can't Buy You Love record, Elton John. That was a good one there.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah. I like that you brought that up because he obviously gets, when we think of him, we think of Midnight Train to Georgia, we think of the Temptations, we think of some of the more R&B, funkier hits, but the Elton Johns and the Phil Collins and like these other aspects of his career that doesn't get the same amount of attention.
And he did, after Jimi Hendrix died, they pulled out some tapes and he did 5 tracks, the overdub, 5 tracks on the Crash Landing was the name of the album that came out, I think like 5. And there's a couple on there that really stood out. Peace in Mississippi. It's not on YouTube anymore. It used to be on YouTube. They pulled them all off there. Peace in Mississippi was a good one. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's different versions than the ones that were out before.
Okay.
What else there? There was one called Captain Coconut. That was him on that. The credits had the other guy. He played on that version of it. That's 3. There's 2 more on there. Those are good tracks there. That's some good work on there.
Yeah.
It was very good work. I'm not sure why they pulled it off of YouTube, all that stuff.
I don't know. What do you think? You think it was Hendrix Estate?
Crash Landing is on there. That track's the only one. So that was some good work there.
Yeah.
There was an album he did. So Robert Palmer used to do a lot of production. He used to produce a lot of different artists, and he would call my father to come and do work on that, work with him. And he recorded an album on his background singer, BJ Nelson, and there was some good tracks on that stuff. Very good tracks. A lot of that's on YouTube there. Yeah, some good stuff there. Right. So I'm just thinking, there's a lot of good performances. Maybe they weren't hit records, but they really stood out. The performances are really good there.
Sure.
So, yeah, a lot of good stuff there.
Man, that's fantastic. Joe, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I actually have to get to learning some tunes for a rehearsal I have.
Okay.
So I gotta pull one of your dads. I gotta make sure I'm prepared. I can't be talking about this and show up unprepared.
Okay. Well, thank you for remembering my father and taking this time.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to be effective. Yeah, I hope it wasn't effective for anyone listening. The young people to be inspired. Wanted to be inspiring. My father was a very inspiring man, and that's what he would want. He would want the young people to be inspired and to go for it, man. Whatever they want to do, musically, to really focus and just to go for it, man. 100%, give 110%. That's what he would do. He'd always give 110%.
All right, that was my talk with Joe Kreinar, the son of Bob Babbitt. Respecting the office. That was a big one for me. I loved that phrase, respecting the office. Like whatever, even if the person running the office isn't doing it in a way that you find agreeable, but respecting the office and always showing professionalism. That's another takeaway we can get from Bob, with not only his playing, but these nuggets of professionalism. He had a very successful career, and I'm so glad he got recognized later on in his life and kind of still wasn't in the shadow of James Jamerson there at Motown, because Bob is definitely a legend in his own right. And I'm glad I got to do this tribute. I'm glad I got to speak with the family. I'm glad that that they were able to have a voice on Bob's behalf, to communicate stories about his career, and we got to know him a little bit better through the time spent learning and hearing from Chuck Kreinar and also from Joe Kreinar. So thank you both again, Chuck and Joe, for your time on this. For more information about who's coming up on the podcast and what's going on at thebassshed.com, you can sign up for the newsletter at www.thebassshed.com. We'll be sending out some email blasts about what's coming up kind of monthly about to release. I kind of reformatted the whole site, so that's going to be coming up here in the next couple weeks. That's about all I got, folks. That's about all I got for right now. You can also track me down on social media, Facebook.com/The Bass Shed, Instagram @The Bass Shed, Twitter @Bass Shed. And I try to stay as active as I can there. Yeah, maybe I could do better. Social media and me don't always get along. All right, folks, that's what I got for this one. And I will catch you on the next one in a minute.